Hello. Today I'm telling the story of Grange, a wine that needs no introduction as it is arguably Australia's most celebrated wine and listed as a heritage icon of South Australia. However, very few people know the beautiful history behind this iconic wine. Penfolds, one of the oldest wineries in Australia, was founded in 1844 by Dr. Christopher Rawson Penfold and his wife Mary. Dr. Christopher was a practicing medical doctor and started making fortified wines that he would prescribe to his patients, which, as you can probably imagine, made him incredibly popular. So Penfolds was born as a fortified winemaking house and continued to grow in that capacity for the next 100 years until Max Schubert took over as chief winemaker in 1948. Max, who had started as a messenger boy at the estate, took the lead as winemaker upon his return from World War II. As a first order of business, Max made the long journey to Europe, where he wanted to study the fortified winemaking practices in places such as Oporto and Jerez. And he did, but he also took some side trips, such as to Champagne and Bordeaux, and these side trips changed everything. It was in these legendary locations that Max decided that he wanted to create a wine that was as long-lived and meticulously crafted as the best wines in the world. So Max returned to Australia with this mission in mind, but had to use the resources available to him. For example, the quality of Cabernet that was growing at that time in Australia wasn't going to compare to Bordeaux, but he had the finest Shiraz wines at his disposal. And while French oak was around in abundance, especially after World War II, he had access to high-quality American oak. So he started crafting what is now known as the Grange, a wine which he unveiled in 1951 and has been made every vintage since, even though it wasn't first met with great renown. You see, it was a very different sort of style from the fortified wines that people were used to, and the board of directors actually ordered Max to cease production in 1956. But Max believed in the Grange, so much that he continued to make the 1957, 58, and 59 vintages in secret, knowing that the board would eventually come around. And so they did, just a few short years later, and Max was able to unveil an unbroken lineage of Granges. Now about Grange production. Grange is a multi-region, multi-vineyard blend sourced from vineyards across South Australia, with only the best A1 grade fruit being chosen for inclusion. Each vintage will potentially be a different blend of regions, as the purpose is to craft the best expression of the Penfolds Grange house style from vintage to vintage. Hence, Grange has become known as the most consistent of the world's great wines. There's always a small percentage of Cabernet Sauvignon blended with the Shiraz, usually less than 5% or so, and it's aged for 20 months in new American oak hogsheads. All in all, Grange tells a beautiful story of power and elegance, density and structure, all tempered with an overall balance. This is truly a singular wine that will age for decades.